Long story. Before I graduated from college, my parents told me that they're planning to open a branch of their hardware store. They want me to manage it and promise that after 3 years, once the cash flow is great, they will transfer it to me. Obviously, I grabbed the opportunity because, duh, it's a ducking business. So I worked hard for free, their condition, because I believed that I'll have it someday. 3 years later, the branch did well. It's earning more than the main branch, which they managed. Now, the lockdown forced it to shut down for a few months, but it went back eventually. And I thought it would finally be transferred to me, but they didn't. After our business resumed its operation, my dad suddenly took over. I got demoted to sales staff. My dad is freaking toxic. He had this know-it-all attitude. He refused to get lectured, especially by me, who is just his son. Ever since he took over, the business's performance is declining. It's frustrating. Last night, I talked to them about our agreement 5 years ago. I asked them when will the ownership be transferred to me. They suddenly got furious, and even resorted to calling me ambiciosa. Basically, ambitious, but in a very derogatory manner. Because apparently, I'm still too young to own a business. I should wait for them to die before I inherit the business. In the meantime, I should learn to humble myself. I don't even know what they meant with that, but seriously, I've had enough. I'm turning 26 this year, and yet I don't have any savings at all. While my friends are either married, owned a business, or are traveling to places they want to, I'm still here asking for my parents to give me money if I want to buy something. So I ran away earlier this morning and crashed at my best friend's place. My best friend is a corporate lawyer, and after telling him my situation, he told me that we can file a lawsuit against my parents to force them to give the business to me. After all, oral agreement is still a contract, and it is still valid, 6 years validity. I also have evidence to prove it. Facebook chat from 5 years ago, and multiple witnesses. Technically, what they did is a fraud. On top of that, I'm also considered a slave, since I didn't earn anything from it. I wasn't even registered as an employee, so they don't pay my tax and the mandated health insurance and social security system. Aside from forcing them to give the business to me, I can also receive more compensation for the years I lost. This sounds appealing, but his mom protested against the idea, saying this is absurd and a form of blackmailing. And if you think about it, it does sound like blackmailing. Hey Dad, you give the business to me, or you'll face a lawsuit that you cannot win, and probably force your business to close. Yes, that sounds like blackmailing. Now I'm conflicted. I want to get what I deserve, but I don't want to be an a-hole. Would I be the a-hole? Geez, not the a-hole, and I'm sorry that you're almost 26 and still think of staying somewhere else as running away. They sure have done a number on you. They used you for free labor to grow their business, and forced you to be unable to grow up and be an adult and start your own life. Suing someone for fraud really doesn't count as blackmail. Not the a-hole. File the lawsuit. Your parents are completely toxic and treated you horribly. Would you have even asked if it wasn't a relative? There's no reason why they should get a pass. Not the a-hole. Your friend's mother is speaking as a parent, and not as a legal counsel. You completed your part of the contract in good faith. If this proposal forces your parents to complete their part without taking it to court, it's much better for all parties. Your father lied to you. You have every right to compensation for your hard work. Again, not the a-hole. I, 33 male, have 2 half-sisters through my late father. Michelle, 24 female, and Amy, 23 female. Michelle and Amy have different mothers, but both of their moms are also sisters. Apparently my dad cheated on my stepmom Michelle's mom while she was pregnant, and that's how Amy came about. Amy's mom didn't believe in termination, but couldn't bring herself to part with her daughter, so she chose to keep Amy and find a loving stepdad for her. Michelle was still a toddler when my stepmom and dad died in a car accident, and because her maternal grandparents had their hands full with helping take care of Amy, my grandparents opted to take her in, and Michelle would visit her mom's side of the family. When my dad died, my aunt was put in charge of his finances, and after the funeral expenses, she put the rest of the savings and life insurance policy into savings account and investments for Michelle and I. My aunt also put her own money into launching a lawsuit against the people for their role in my dad and stepmom's death, and won much more than what the company was trying to settle for. That money was also added in the accounts and investments. My aunt also took in Michelle when she was 13, and put in a lot of effort to make sure Michelle and I had a bond, by taking us out on fun trips across the world. By the time Michelle and I were able to go to college, there was plenty of money and assets for us to not have to worry about money. By the time Michelle and I earned our respective bachelors, we had decided to split the remaining funds evenly, and were about to do so when we were both hit with a lawsuit from Amy, and that's how we found out about the secret. After DNA tests proved that Amy was our half-sister, Michelle tried to calmly talk to her, but Amy wasn't interested because she felt we were going to try and cheat her out of what she was entitled to. Amy intended to get the entirety of the remaining funds, plus have us pay her a certain amount, but she ended up only getting 70% of the fund. This case went on for a year, and Amy was really nasty about it. But when the dust settled, she had the audacity to try and form a sibling relationship. Michelle still loved Amy and forgave her, and obviously my grandparents wanted to get to know their long-lost grandchild. But for me, Michelle was my only sister, through my dad, and I just tolerated Amy at events. When my wife and I moved into our house, we had a small get-together, and Amy showed up and she saw some of my dad's items. She asked to have some, and I immediately refused. She got upset and said that she was just as much entitled to something of our dad's as I was. I countered that she already got what she was entitled to in court, and that anything else is charity. Amy stormed off, and my grandparents think that I was too harsh. But the way I see it is you can't sue people and then expect to be on friendly terms later. Am I the a-hole? Edited to add. Because of word count, I couldn't add it in, but now that people are asking, here's some more info. 1. Michelle and I had no idea Amy was our half-sister until the lawsuit. We just woke up one day and was served by someone from her legal team. 2. Michelle and her grandparents already gave Amy photos of our dad, so it's not like she doesn't have anything. 3. Once the DNA test proved Amy was our sister, Michelle and I intended to split the remaining assets equally between the three of us, but Amy didn't want to do that. 4. I didn't invite Amy to my housewarming. She just showed up with Michelle, and I didn't want to ruin the mood, so I let her in. 5. The trips that Michelle and I took was paid for by our aunt with her own money. Edited to add 2. 4th paragraph, I mentioned Amy being nasty. Well, here's some more details on that. 1. When I was served, I was at the hospital because my mom was having surgery, and Amy knew I'd be there. 2. During the process, Amy was convinced that Michelle and I were trying to hide money from her and reported us to the IRS, while my wife and I were trying to get a house the first time. Edited to add 3. I'm an American living in USA. Edited to add 4. The lawsuit was almost 4 years ago, and Michelle and I didn't fight for an appeal because we just wanted to move on with our lives. Not the a-hole. If she wanted to have some of your dad's stuff to remember him by, it would have come up in conversation earlier. Sounds like she saw the items and wanted to make a scene. Not the a-hole, not the a-hole, not the a-hole. Holy crap, no. She barged in on you, years after the fact, and demanded money with a legal team. She did this while your mom was in the hospital. She was so obsessed with the money that she reported you to the IRS. No ducking way is that person getting any kind of kindness. She's just looking for more money, hoping for something valuable. Not the a-hole, but you should appeal that ruling. Get a better lawyer. She should not have gotten 70%. As for the relationship, simply put your relatives on notice that you are not interested in a relationship with Amy. She's not welcome at your house, and ask them to respect your wishes. Why would you be an a-hole for not saving money for someone you didn't know about? She sounds vindictive, and trying to take your keepsakes proves it. Never let her in again. I've been married once before. My ex and I were a couple for 9 years and married for 7 of them. We have 3 kids together, ages 11, 8, and 6. I kept my ex-husband's last name after we divorced. We're still friends, and it was too much of a hassle to revert to my maiden name since I've already graduated college and started my career with my married name. I also like having the same surname as my kids. My ex has never cared before, nor does my current boyfriend. However, my ex recently became engaged to his new girlfriend, together less than a year. I've met her only a handful of times, but she seemed nice enough and my kids haven't voiced any issues with her, which to me is the most important thing. So I was shocked when out of the blue, she contacted me a few days ago after they announced the engagement and asked that I revert back to my maiden name. I literally laughed out loud when I read her text. I didn't think she was serious at first, but she was. Her reasoning is that since my ex will have a new wife, it would be wrong for me to keep his name. I essentially told her, no ducking way, although a bit more tactful. My ex then called me and asked that I at least consider it since it's something his fiancé really cares about, and that it's not technically my name anyways. I let him know I wasn't going to go through with the headache of changing it again, but if they were so concerned about names, he should take her surname. My ex said I was being petty, and asked me to just please think about it. I would have been happy to end it there, but I got another message from his fiancé, which was basically a thinly veiled legal threat about suing me to change my name. I didn't bother to respond to her message. You can't make someone change their name, and I'm not concerned about some frivolous lawsuit at all. But I did screenshot what she said and sent it to my ex, telling him his fiancé needs to back the hell off, which he hasn't responded to. My boyfriend also thinks the whole situation is stupid, and thinks I should just tell them to both duck off next time they say something. I don't know if I'm being an a-hole, though. I get it's not my original name, but it's my professional one, plus my kids' last name as well. I don't know. This whole thing has been so ridiculous. Not the a-hole. I think your ex-husband understands why you're keeping it, and he seems like a reasonable person. He's just struggling to come to terms with his fiancé's obsessive compulsion to your surname. I think the best thing to do here would be just to blow off the fiancée and ignore her, since her lawsuit won't go anywhere regardless. The threat of legal action made me laugh as well. You're opening yourself up to potentially have issues traveling with your children, especially if you ever plan to go abroad if you have a different last name than them, plus all the possible ramifications, annoyances for you professionally. As someone who did change their last name back after divorce, you are so right, it's a huge headache. You'll have to go back to court and get a certified copy of your divorce decree with the county seal on it if you don't already have that, which costs money. Social Security requires that you restore your name. I understand your ex wants to keep the peace, but your last name has nothing to do with their relationship or marriage. If I were you, I'd also keep an eye out for how she treats your children after the marriage. Some people seem to change or show their true colors after the I do, and this crazy behavior is a red flag. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Stop engaging with people who don't listen to you. You said no, and you gave a number of very good reasons for your decision. The subject is closed. I wouldn't go out of my way to be rude to someone I was going to have to deal with for the next decade, so skip the duck you, and just ignore any future texts on this subject from her. In fact, why not block her entirely? I frequently get asked by people with college-aged kids to talk to them about going to law school. I know that the parents assume I will try to talk their kid into going to law school. However, no one ever phrases it that way, or specifically asks me to talk them into going. I typically happily agree to chat with their precocious undergraduate. I never tell the parents what I'm going to say to their kids. Then I tell those kids the truth. Being a lawyer is frequently a crap show, and not at all what TV or movies make it appear. Law school is difficult and expensive. Many lawyers start practicing in their mid to late 20s, with over $200,000 in student loans. The job itself is often both stressful and boring, which is a weird emotional place to be in. Depending on the nature of the practice, you're probably going to be dealing with tight deadlines, with real consequences constantly. Certain kinds of practices, family law being the low-hanging fruit here, usually generate a lot of stress and negative emotions. There are lawyers out there making over $175K per year right out of school. Those people are usually working 90-plus hour work weeks. It's a grind. Oh, and law firms are typically a pyramid scheme, holding out equity partnership as the carrot and reward for a decade or so of trench labor. A very small percentage of attorneys make it to that lofty perch. The median attorney salary in the USA is around $45K per year. Try to pay off $200K in loans on that kind of pay. I spoke to an acquaintance's college senior kid earlier this week for about a half hour and laid all of this out. The parent then called me up to yell at me for ruining their plans for their daughter's future. I told them that I agreed to talk to their kid about being a lawyer and that I never said I would try to paint a rosy picture. I even pointed out that they didn't ask me to sell the idea. They just asked if I would talk about it. The daughter is still planning on taking the LSAT, along with the GRE, and maybe the NCAT. So am I the a-hole for not trying to talk these promising young men and women into selling their souls for an Esquire? Edit. I posted these in comments, but I'm moving them here for easier visibility. Some general responses to questions in the comments. I talk to people who are all over the spectrum on law school and lawyering. I don't try to talk everybody out of it. I just try to provide some perspective that most people don't have access to. I know that I started law school with some very wrong ideas about the education and the job. I was the first lawyer in my entire extended family and did not know anyone who would give it to me straight about the job. If people have reasons to go to law school, I don't try to talk them out of it. The vast majority of the undergraduates I've talked to have been considering law school either because they got a liberal arts degree and did not have another plan for a career, or their parents are pushing them to go. The entire concept of get a law degree, you can do anything, is one that I actively discourage. You know what? You can do most of the things people say a law degree is useful for without the law degree. Once you have practiced for a few years, it can actually be hard to transition out of the industry, because being a practicing law firm attorney may not actually prepare you for a lot of jobs. Junior attorneys, 1 to 3 years out of school, at bigger firms may not even have much relevant legal experience. Many attorneys and firms do not even go to court for the first few years. I personally know attorneys in litigation practices that worked on discovery only for years. That's the information exchange part of a lawsuit. If you want to go to law school, do it. Just recognize that the industry and the job do not usually comport to expectations. Do the research, know your financial picture, and don't do it to make someone else happy. For the salary commenters, I also seem to have pulled an older median salary number. Regardless, keep in mind that whatever average salary data they show you, half the lawyers out there are making less than that. The fact that you savvy Redditors could find salary info shows that you put more research into the idea than many of the undergrads I speak to. Second edit. I actually enjoyed law school immensely. I also thought that the LSAT was an interesting puzzle, and I enjoyed studying for and taking the test. Not the a-hole. Graduated law school last May, and I wish someone had talked me out of going to law school. It was truly a terrible 3 years. Not the a-hole. I'm so sick of this crap from parents. Good on you for being honest. They're trying to force their kid into a degree path they don't want and will be disappointed in. I work in IT, and a lot of folks try to funnel their kids to that career too. Without the passion, you won't be successful.